B Squad, welcome back to another video. This is KrissyBVlogs, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about my appointment with my dietitian. So I know in my last weigh-in video, people were kind of curious because of the fact that I talked about maybe not doing the exact diet that I had identified that I would be doing in the beginning of this video. So let's start from the beginning, I guess. I went in for an appointment last Thursday, so the day before, or a couple days before my last weigh-in. And I had this appointment with a dietitian scheduled for a while. Even though I kind of had a plan of what I wanted to do for weight loss, I thought I would go ahead and see a dietitian to make sure that I had, extra people to be accountable accountable to, and also to maybe get like other meal options, things like that. And that's really what I was going in there for. I assumed she would be all on board with what I was doing, because every time I've ever gone to a doctor, like, their primary focus and concern is like, you gotta lose weight. Even to the extreme. Like I talked about in another video where I had a scar on my leg and the doctor was like, you need to lose weight. And I'm like, I didn't know that would heal a scar, but cool. Anyway, when I went in to see her, I was really surprised to find out that weight loss was not her primary concern, and I was really surprised to find out that she didn't like the diet that I was on, or the diet that I have been planning, or the diet that I plan to continue to be on, and she thought that it was not good for me because of my background of trauma around food and eating, and my trauma in general, and then also the fact that I have binge eating disorder. She didn't come right out and say that. She wasn't like, I think this is a terrible idea, but that's basically what she hinted at. So I talked to her a lot about my past with diets and explained to her that I've been on a diet since I was 2 years old, so I don't really know what it's like to eat normally. Since I was 2 years old, I've always cycled from restricting and then binging. So my parents fed me a ton when I was little to just kind of keep me occupied. And so food became my security, my comfort. It was fun, it was good, all that. Then I lived with my grandma for a while. I think I moved in with her around 3 years old. I don't know exactly, but somewhere around there. And my grandmother put me on an extremely restrictive diet. I wasn't allowed to eat more than what would fit in a small baby food jar per meal. If I missed dinner, like if I went to wrestling practice, because I used to wrestle, and I missed dinner, if I came home, I wasn't allowed to have dinner. I could eat like a carrot or an apple. I wasn't allowed to eat food unless I drank a specific amount of water. So if I didn't drink my water, then I wasn't allowed to eat. And then most of the time, whenever the rest of the family would have treats, she would serve them after I had to go to bed, so I wouldn't be able to participate in that. And then as soon as I left her house, as soon as I left her house, I binged out. Like, I just ate everything I could get my hands on, and I just ate. I mean, there were times at her house where I would sneak food and things as well, but there wasn't a whole lot of access, and trust me, sneaking food in her house was scary. Like, it was very scary. I didn't do it too much. She did get me thin. That was the only time in my life that I was thin, but as soon as I left her house, because it was done in a very unhealthy way, and it really messed with my brain, I just ate everything. And so I gained a lot of weight when I left her house. I lived with some cousins for a while, and essentially every single person in my life was just always focused on my weight. Like, my body was never okay. Even when my grandmother had me thin, she told me I was fat. So that's the beginning of my eating disorder story, and kind of how my binge eating and restricting developed. So throughout my lifetime, I've gone through various diets. I've done summer size, I've done beach body, I've done low carb, I've done plant-based, I've done regular calorie restriction, or at least regular to me, so like 1,200-1,300 a day. And then I've also done like extreme calorie restriction where I'm only allowed to have 400 or 500 a day. And all of these things have worked for me, but only in the short term, because I restrict for, I don't know, depending on how motivated I am, I've restricted anywhere from like a week to a few months. And I'll lose a significant amount of weight. When I'm doing those really restrictive diets, I can usually lose like, a pound a day. And then as soon as I come off of those diets, I go into like this bender, is what I would call it.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
I can't stop. And it lasts for a very long time until I go back into that cycle of restricting. So one of the first things that she gave me was this. It's called the Binge Purge Cycle. You guys can see that. And I'll read it to you. So essentially, it says, I've been good all day and high from the restriction. So like you get that high, like you're amped up, you're like, oh, I'm doing so good. And then something happens that triggers you. It could be, seeing a particular food. It could be an argument. It could be something sad or bad happening. Like something triggers you. And then you find yourself looking in the pantry or looking for food or thinking about food. And then you're finally aware of how hungry or deprived you're feeling. And you're like, oh my gosh. Like instead of just eating a normal meal, you're like, okay, I'm about to eat a horse. And then you start making the rounds with food. So you're like, I might have some of this, I might have some of that. And then you're like, okay. And then you settle on something, and then you start eating and eating and eating. And then you feel like happy and relieved. And you're like, oh, finally, I got the food that I want. I feel so much better. And then you don't stop eating, and you get really uncomfortably full. And then when you get uncomfortably full, like the guilt and the shame it's there. And you screwed up, and you just screwed up. And then you start saying things like, why did I do that? What's wrong with me? I'm stupid. That was stupid. Like all those, really hateful things you can say to yourself. Your anxiety gets high, and then you purge. And purge can mean a variety of things. It doesn't necessarily mean vomiting. It just means you're trying to overcompensate for the extra calories that you consumed. So you could a lot of people do laxatives, or they force themselves to throw up, or they over-exercise, or they go into that really restrictive mode, or like starving themselves or fasting or whatever. And then you feel relief from that, and you make a plan for continuing your restriction. And then at the end of the day, the cycle just repeats. So you constantly are in this cycle of like restricting to get the body that you want, that everybody wants you to have, or that you perceive everybody wants you to have, the societal image of beauty. For me personally, what my family has shoved down my throat. And so you're restricting, and then eventually you binge again. And so she gave me that basically to be like, this is the cycle you're in. And I was definitely aware of the binging piece, right? I was definitely aware of my binge eating, but I never really realized that I had a cycle of restricting. And I never really realized that I had a cycle of purging. And I didn't really dabble a whole lot into vomiting or laxatives. A little bit when I was much, much, much younger, like maybe about 10 years ago. I dabbled in that stuff a little bit, but it never stuck. I mainly just planned for a lot of restriction later, like extremely low calories, like, oh, you can only eat 400 calories for a week to make up for the binge, or over exercising, or just straight no calories for a certain amount of time. So that was kind of my cycle, and I didn't realize it. And I also didn't realize that in my entire life, I've never ever eaten normally. I've always had a perseveration on food, with food, and I've constantly been in this restricting, binging cycle. Constantly. So, one of the big things that she told me, the reason why she didn't want me to stick to this low carb keto restriction type diet is not because I'm restricting calories, it's because I'm restricting food groups, and that's been my cycle for years. And what has always happened is I've restricted, I've lost a good amount of weight, and then I go on a bender and I binge and I gain most of that weight or more back. So I don't know why this hit me so hard, but it really hit me hard when she basically said, I'm not worried about you losing weight. And when she said, I am not worried about you fitting a particular image that you're supposed to fit. And she didn't say these words exactly. She did say it about the weight, but this is just kind of like an overview of what she said, and to the best of my recollection. What she said is she's most concerned with making sure that I'm healthy and making sure that we stop this binge cycle and that I develop a healthy relationship with food and get rid of some of that anxiety and get rid of this restriction and binge cycle that I've been in, literally either forced when I was a child or by choice when I got older. So what really shocked me is, for the first time in my life ever, someone gave me permission to eat like a normal person. And I looked at the food plan she gave me and I was horrified. I was so scared of that food plan because there was no restriction. And I was like, how could I possibly lose weight if there's no restricting? Like, this isn't possible for me. I'm a fat person. I'm not able to eat like a normal person. I'm not allowed to have treats. I'm not allowed to do these things. And, I know logically that that's my disordered thinking, but I was horrified when I saw the meal plan she gave me, and I was so fearful when she said to eat like a normal person. It was a really weird, it felt like relief and it felt good, but I was also just scared to death. And I was also really scared of bringing this to YouTube when I had already set up a pretty structured plan of what I was doing, and I don't want people to feel like I'm giving up or anything like that, because that is not my intent at all. So what ended up happening after her appointment, remember on this day, I was still doing low carb. And before her appointment, I had eaten only low carb. This was the day after my binge. And when I went home, I had a battle with myself of what I was going to do. And I felt like if I were to eat like a normal person and not restrict myself and not do keto, I was failing and I was never going to lose weight, and I was going to let myself, my family, and everybody else down. And it was a horrendous feeling. Horrendous. But when I was in her office and we were talking about this, it was a 2-hour appointment, y'all. Like, we talked. But when I was in her office and we talked about eating normally, this is the food plan she gave me. If you guys can screenshot that and see it. But I will read it to you. So essentially, there's no limitations or restrictions on it. For breakfast, she said to consume, these are the things she wants me to try to consume during my meals. Breakfast, she says to consume a calcium, a complex carbohydrate, a fruit or vegetable, and then a protein or a fat is optional. And then she said to have whatever you want for a snack if you need. And then she said lunch, consume calcium, complex carbohydrate, fruit or vegetable, a protein, a fat, and then a fun food. And then you can have a snack if you need. Dinner is the same thing as lunch. calcium, complex carbohydrate, fruit or vegetable, protein, fat, and fun food, and then another snack if you need. That looked like a lot of food to me, y'all. And then on the side, it has all the suggestions for like complex carbohydrate, fats, fruits, and fun foods. When I saw a diet plan that said fun food, what? I'm a fat person, and I have a nutritionist telling me that I can have some chips or some non-diet soda or a milkshake. For lunch and for dinner, I can have those things. And she said there's no real restrictions on it. She said listen to your body, because I am aware what hunger feels like, and I'm aware what being full feels like. I also know that I've stuffed myself via binge eating. She said eat till you're full. Don't tell yourself you can't have any of these things, and see how that goes for you. See how that impacts your binging. And then I thought about it, you guys. And on week 1, the week that I lost 4.2 pounds was detox week. I had no restrictions on that week. None. I was trying to eat less sugars, trying to eat less fast food, junk food, but I was still consuming them, just, at a smaller amount, and I didn't tell myself I couldn't have them. And I lost 4.2 pounds. And one thing I realized is in that week, I felt more free from my binge eating and my eating disorder, and more free about food than I've ever felt in my entire life. I wasn't obsessed with food that week. It wasn't like when I was hungry, I ate food. Sometimes it was healthy food, sometimes it wasn't healthy food. But also that week, I stopped eating when I was full because I knew I wasn't going to be restricting myself. And so I've kind of decided to do what she said. Instead of doing this low carbohydrate keto diet and then switching back to high carb, and so basically restricting and crap, I'm going to try to do what she said. And that's what I've done for the last 3 days, is eat what I want, don't eat past being full, trying to incorporate more healthy things, eating less junk, and yeah. So it was really crazy to meet with this nutritionist and be told all these things, and for her number one concern not to be with me losing weight. So right now, our focus is, mine and the nutritionist, is helping me regain or develop a healthy relationship with food, minimizing the incidents where I binge, and then also increasing my stamina. So after being very sedentary, extremely sedentary for the last couple of years, my stamina is extremely low as far as like physical activity and those kinds of things. So that's one of our big things, is getting me back to a place where I can do all the things that I love without feeling like it's a huge chore or a burden. So yeah, this was really, really eye-opening for me. I hope I'm successful on it. I know her goal for me isn't necessarily weight loss right out the gate. That's my goal for me. I would like to get down in some weight. Right now, I don't feel like I'm healthy carrying around the weight that I'm carrying, regardless of my blood work looking good and etc. I still just don't feel like I'm at a healthy weight for me. So we're going to try it, and we're going to see if eating normally, now that someone's giving me permission to eat like a normal person, if that will help minimize my overeating and my binge eating. And I really hope that it does. So anyways, I know this has been a super, super long video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you guys have any questions or comments or feedback, please let me know in the comments down below. If you want to follow me on my journey to health and fitness and weight loss, please subscribe. Please click the notification bell so you can get all of my next videos. And I will talk to you guys next time. Thanks so much. Bye.